Imagine if I ask you to create 100 separate variables to store data. Sounds like a time-consuming task, right? You would have to name each one, keep track of them all, and constantly reference them individually. Definitely not an efficient way to code. This is where arrays comes in to rescue the Java. Instead of creating individual variables, you can use an array to store multiple values under one name, all neatly organized and easy to access. Now here's why understanding array is crucial, especially from an interview perspective. Arrays are fundamental in most programming tasks, and interviewers often use them to access your problem solving skills. You will frequently encounter scenarios where handling large data sets is key, and knowing how to use arrays will demonstrate your ability to write clean and optimized code. Now before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to never miss any update. So what are arrays in Java? An array in Java is like a container that holds a fixed number of items, and all those items have to be of the same type. Imagine you have a row of boxes, and each box can only store a specific type of item, like only books or only shoes, but never both. So basically, it allows you to store multiple items of the same type in a contiguous block of memory. Once you create an array and its size is set, then if you create an array to hold 6 items, it will always have space for exactly 6 items. You can't add more later, and you cannot shrink it later. Alright. Next thing is, all the elements in an array must be of the same type. If you create an array of integer, it can only hold integers, no mixing in with other types like strings or characters. Every item in an array has a position, and these positions are called indexes. In Java, array indexes start at 0, meaning the first element is at position 0 and the second is at position 1, and so on. Arrays allows you to quickly access any element directly by using its index. This makes array very efficient when you know the position of the data you want to retrieve. Arrays are great when you know ahead of time how many items you need to store and you want to keep things simple. They give you direct access to any element by its index, making them fast and efficient for tasks like looping through data or updating specific values. For example, if you have a list of student grades and you know there are 30 students, an array is a perfect solution because you can store all the grades in one place and access them quickly using a loop that we will be discussing in this tutorial further, how to use array with loops. Alright, so now come to the next topic, which is how to declare, initialize and access elements of an array in Java. So before you can use an array, you need to tell Java that you are going to create one. Declaring an array is just like saying, hey Java, I need a collection to store multiple values of a specific type. So here's the syntax, int numbers. So as we can see, the int part tells Java you are creating an array that holds integer, that is int data type. Then there is numbers, number is the name of the array. Here it tells the name that array has this name, just like naming any other variable. It's simple. It's your choice, whatever you want to name it, it's up to you. So basically you are just declaring the array here, meaning you haven't actually created space in memory to hold values yet. It's like saying I need an array but not specifying how many elements you will store. Alright, now let's explore further. This was the declaration. Now let's understand initialization part. So initializing an array. So once you have declared an array, you need to allocate space for it and fill it with values. Initializing means actually creating the array and giving it a fixed size. So there are two main ways to initialize an array in Java. First is initializing with a fixed size, that is without specific values. So you can create an array with a fixed size but without giving it any specific values right away. Java will automatically fill the array with the default values. For example, 0 for integers, null for objects. Here as we can see, int, then there is array numbers, new int 5. So here you are saying create an array of integers called numbers that can hold 5 values. Initially, all the elements of numbers will be 0 because that's the default value for integers in Java. So like that. Second is initializing with specific values. So this is the second type, how you can initialize the value of an array. So you can create and initialize an array with specific values all at once. As we can see on the screen, int numbers, then we have specified the values 10, 20, 30, 40 and 50. So this creates an array of 5 integers and immediately fills it with values like 10, 20, 30, 40 and 50. So you don't need to specify the size like new int 5 because Java knows the size based on the number of values you have provided. So it's that simple. Alright. So we have covered the declaration and initialization part. Now let's understand the accessing the elements of an array part. So for that, let me tell you guys with the help of an example. So let's go to Eclipse. Alright, we are on our Eclipse IDE. So here we'll be doing an example in which I'll be explaining about accessing the elements in an array. Alright. So after you have declared and initialized your array, you will often want to access specific elements. In Java, you do this using the index of element that you want to access. Alright. So just keep in mind that array indexes in Java start from 0. So the first element is at index 0 and the second element is at index 1 and so on. Like that it goes. Alright. So let's understand with the help of an example. So int numbers, let's say. So this is how you declare and initialize the array. This is the syntax basically. And here we will be adding the values. So the values you can add as per your choice. You don't have to add exactly the values that I'm adding. Alright, 4, let's say 24, then 19 and 7. Alright, so few values we have added inside the array. Now if I want to access these elements of an array, what I'll do is I'll simply, first of all, I'll just write the print statement. Yeah, what I'll do is the name of the array, numbers, and the brackets. Inside the brackets, I'll mention the index of the array. For example, let's say I want to display 12, this 12 over here. So what I'll do? So this 12 is at position 0, 1 and 2. So it is at the second index. So I'll just write 2. Just keep in mind, again I'm saying, in arrays the index starts from 0, 0, 1, 2, 3 like that. So technically this 12 is at position 2. Alright. Now again, if I want to print some other element, like let's say I want to print 19, right? So this 19 I want to print. So tell me at which index number it is right now. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. It is at index 5. Alright. Now I will save it and I will run it. So as you can see, now we are basically accessing or displaying the elements of an array. So you can perform various operations. This is a simple operation. I just want to let you guys know. So like this you can access the elements of an array. Simple as that. So this was about the integers. For example, let's say I have a string array. Alright. So for that what I'll do is, let's create a string. So here we are creating a string array and we have named it house. Now inside this we'll add some elements. Let's say Stark, Lannister. So this is how you create an string array. So you have to separate those elements, and there is Greyjoy. Alright, semicolon. Now again similarly I'll do for this one also. For example, if I want to print, let's say Lannisters, okay. So what I'll do is the name of the array and inside the brackets I'll mention the index. Now tell me guys, what is the index of Lannister over here? I believe you guys have said 1. So Stark is 0, 1, 2 and 3. It goes like that. But the actual size is 4. Just keep in mind that. Alright. So I'll write 1 if I want to print the Lannisters. I'll save it and I'll run it. So as you can see, Lannister is being print. So this is how you can access the elements of an array. So this was a complete basic example. Now, so this was basically about declaring and initializing arrays in Java. Now let's talk about the types of array in Java. Alright. So types of array in Java. So in Java, arrays come into two main types: single dimensional arrays and multi-dimensional arrays. These allows you to store and manage multiple values efficiently, but they differ in how they are structured and accessed. So in Java, arrays come into two main types: single dimension arrays and multi-dimensional arrays. These allows you to store and manage multiple values efficiently, but they differ in how they are structured and accessed. Alright, so first we have is single dimensional arrays. A single dimensional array, often just called an array, is the most basic type of array in Java. It's like a straight line of boxes where each box can hold one value, all of the same type. You access each element using a single index, as we just did an example of it. Alright, so here's the syntax on the screen. So ages is the name of the array. 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, these are the elements. So this is a single dimension array. Each element is accessed by a single index that represents its position in the array. You can think of this as a list of values in a straight line. Alright. Now coming to the multi-dimensional array. So multi-dimensional array is essentially an array of arrays. The most common type is the two-dimensional array, also called 2D array. But Java allows arrays with more dimensions as well, though they are less common in practice, but yeah. A two-dimensional array can be thought of as a table or grid with rows and columns. You access elements using two indexes, one for the row and one for the column. So as you can see on the screen, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So basically here also the rows and columns number start from 0, not 1. Just keep in mind. So here 1, 2, 3 is row 0, 4, 5, 6 is row 1, 7, 8, 9 is row 2. Alright. So it goes like matrix. So if I have to say this matrix array, the position 0, 0, that is row 0 and column 0, that particular element is 1, because 1 is at 0th column and 0th row. And the element which is at position 1 and column 2 is 6. So the column of 6 is 2 and the row is 1. As I told you, 0, 1, 2. So in that sense, 6th element is at row 1 but the column number 2. Alright. So if you can go through it again and understand, you can easily get what I'm saying right now. So basically here the first index represents the row and the second index represents the column. This is very useful when you need to represent data in the table, like a chessboard or matrix in a math. Alright. So this was about types of arrays in Java. Now let's understand how arrays are stored in memory. So when you create an array in Java, the computer sets aside a block of memory to store all the items in the array. This memory is located in a part of computer's memory called the heap, which is where Java stores objects. Arrays are special because they store items one after another in a straight line called contiguous memory. This makes it easy for Java to quickly find any item in the array. For example, if you create an array to store 5 numbers, Java will allocate enough space in the memory to store 5 integers which are all placed next to each other. When you want to access or change a value in the array, Java calculates where each item is based on its position called index. This makes accessing the elements in an array very fast because Java knows exactly where each item is stored. So in Java, arrays are stored in two parts of memory, that is the heap. So the heap stores the actual data, the array elements, and the stack. The stack stores the reference or address that points to where the array is at the heap. Alright. So basically heap stores the elements of array and the stack stores the address which points to where the array is in the heap. Simple as that. So this was about how arrays are stored in memory. Alright. Now let's understand changing the elements of the array. So in Java, arrays allows you to update or change the value of any element after it has been initialized. Since arrays use indexing, where each element has position starting from 0, you can easily access and modify an element by specifying its syntax. You can directly assign a new value to an array using its index. Like just now we did an example of, accessing it. Now, as we can see on the screen, so we have arrays of, let's say its name is numbers, and it is storing 5 values: 24, 89, 123, 85 and 48, and their index are also mentioned. Now if you want to overwrite or change the value of third index, which is 85, the element 85, so simply I'll assign the new value to it, and it will automatically update it. Now let's understand this thing with the help of an example, because I want you guys to understand it completely. so that you can also try some of the examples on your own. Alright, we are back on Eclipse. So here we'll be doing a simple example to make you guys understand it better. So here we'll take an example of strings, fruits. Alright, now let's mention some of the name of the fruits: apples, banana, then there is, let's say, cherry and date. Alright, so now let's say I want to overwrite a particular fruit. Alright, so what I'll do is, let's say I want to overwrite apple here. So let's say I want to update a value or element over here. So let's say I want to modify the first element, which is apple. Alright, so what I'll do is fruits, which is the name of the array, and the index of that particular element, that is apple. Apple is at 0th index, so we have mentioned 0, and here is the updated value, orange. So it will simply overwrite or update the value, or you can say modify the value. It will change the value of apple to orange. Alright, as simple as that. Now here we'll print fruits 0. Alright, so we have updated the value and now we are printing it. Let's save it and run it. So as we can see, fruits at 0th index, now apple is not there but orange is there. Simple as that. I hope you guys understood what I'm conveying. So this was about changing the element of an array. Alright, now coming to the next part, which is determining the length of the array. So in Java, an array is fixed collection of elements of the same data type. The length of an array is total number of elements it can hold. Once an array is created, its length cannot be changed. As simple as that. Alright, as you can see on the screen, there's an array numbers of which is having 5 elements. Alright, 24, 89, 123, 85 and 48. Index numbers are also mentioned, as you can see on the screen. So here the length of the array is 5. Don't calculate the length or size in terms of index, because index starts from 0 but length or size doesn't. Alright, so the length over here is 5 only, because if we'll calculate the number of boxes, which is 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But yeah, if we'll calculate from the index, which is a completely different thing, it will come out 4. Alright, so always remember, length is calculated from 1 itself. Okay, so if we want to print or figure out the length of an array, so how can we do that? Let's understand it. Alright, so for that, let's take an example, string animals. So here we'll add some elements. Let's say first one is dog, and there is cat, elephant, then there is giraffe, and another one is zebra, then there is lion. Alright, now if I want to figure out the length of this particular array, although I know the length of the array, but to show you guys, let me just do an example. So here what we'll do is, we'll use a method dot length, that's it. So system.out.println, so we'll directly print it. We can also do it otherwise, but yeah, we'll directly print it. So length of the array, and here animals, which is the name of the array, and the length method length, that's it. And now save it. So this will basically display the length of the array or the size of the array, or you can say the number of elements inside an array. Alright, it will give us an integer value. So the length of array is 6. So let's calculate 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As simple as that. So this is how you can calculate the length of the array. Alright, now coming to loops with array. So when you're working with arrays, you're dealing with the series of values that are stored under one variable. Arrays have multiple elements, and these elements are accessed using their positions known as index. So a loop is what you use when you want to go through each element in the array and perform some kind of operations on them. For instance, if you have an array of numbers, you want to add them up, you would set up a loop through each number one by one. The loop knows how many times it needs to run, because arrays have length, which is basically the total number of elements in them. In most cases, you would use something like a for loop or a while loop to go through the array. As simple as that. Now to explain you guys, let's do an example. Alright, so we are back on Eclipse. So here we'll do an example in which we will loop through each element of an array and printing its value along with its index. Alright, so by this you will understand how loops are used with array. Alright, so you will be using loops with array quite often. In almost every program that you'll do, you might be using it. Alright, so I want you guys to understand it. First of all, we'll declare, let's say what should we name it? Let's say numbers itself. Yeah, now let's add some values, 10, 30, 40 and 70, like that we can add, and 69 and 78, like that. Keep it consistent. Yeah, so these are the values and this is an array. So we have declared and initialized an array with the name of the array is numbers and its data type is int. Alright, now the second thing that we want to do, we'll use a for loop, because we want a particular loop. We want to iterate each element of an array and we'll be printing each element of the array along with its index. Alright, for that we'll have to use for loop, because loop help us to go through each element of the array and then printing each element of the array. But as we know, in for loop we must have a condition. So what condition should we use over here? Because we want a loop to run till a particular condition is met, right? So basically that's how the loop goes. So we'll be using for loop and int I equals to 0. So the loop will be starting from 0, which is the 0th index of the array, that is 10th. And then here we'll put a condition, the size of the array. Now we can't directly write. If you want, we can write in this case, but there are cases when we don't know the size of the array. So what in this case we can use numbers, which is the name of the array, dot. So you should use this, I less than numbers dot length. So the loop will start from 0 and it will keep on going till the length of the array, which is the last element of the array. Because we want to print each and every element, that is why we are looping it through each and every element till the last element of the array. Alright, so this is the increment. Once one element is done, then it will move to the other element, that is the other index. So it will start from 0th index, then 1 index, then 2 index, then 3 index, like that it will go. So this I plus plus is basically incrementing the index. Alright, now inside the for loop, what we'll do is we'll print system.out.println. Alright, so here as you can see, first we'll just write element at index. Alright, numbers I. Alright, so this is it. So basically what we are doing is, here we are printing the elements of the array, here we are printing the index of the array. Alright, now what the loop will do? So the loop, that is I equal to 0, will start from here. So first the 0th index will be printed. So at 0th index we have 10. Then it will check if the condition is met. Yes, the number is less than its length. So the length of the array is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, this is the length of the array. 6 is the length of the array. So 0 is less than 6. So it will go to forward, that is it will increment. Then it will come to the index 1. Then 1 index is here, then it will print 1. Then similarly 2, then it will print 2. So it will keep on going till it will come to this. So once this will be printed, that is the 6th element, then the loop will stop. So one by one we are basically iterating. Alright, each and every element will be printed by that, and I is the index, so I is also getting printed. Alright, now we'll save it. Alright, we can see element at index 0 is 10, element at index 1 is 30, element at index 2 is 40, at 3 is 70, at 4 is 69, at 5 is 78. As simple as that. I hope you guys understand what I'm doing. You can also do this exactly same thing with the help of while loop. I want you guys to try this thing first with the for loop, and then on your own try this thing with the while loop. Alright, I hope you guys have understood while loop. So I just want you to try that thing, because practice will make you perfect, so you guys have to give it a shot. Alright, so this was one of the example of loop in which we are using it with an array. Now let's do another example. So this will be, here we will do an example in which we'll find the largest element of an array. Alright, so I want you guys to pay some attention because it can be a bit difficult for the beginners, but yeah, it will be worth it. So here we'll have to find the largest element of an array. So what we'll do is we'll go through the entire array and check each and every element if that element is greater than the element that we have set. So first let's start. I'll explain to you guys. All right, first we'll have to declare and initialize an array. Here again we'll take, let's say, numbers only. And all right, so this is the array and these are the elements of that particular array. Now here in this type of example, first of all we will assume the first element of the array is the largest. All right, so this is how it goes. So let's assume the first element is largest. So we'll take a variable largest and assign the first element. So how we're going to do that? Numbers. So the first element of the array, that is at the 0th index, correct? So all right, so we have assigned the first element, that is 5, to the largest variable. So what here we are doing is we are just assuming the first element is the largest. All right, I'll tell you guys why we are doing it. Now we will loop through the array to find the largest element. So we will basically compare this element with other elements. If it is greater than that, then automatically it will be the largest. Otherwise, the other element which is greater than this particular element will replace it. So this is how it goes. So we are using for loop again. Int I equals 1, I less than numbers dot length. All right, now I plus plus. All right, so inside this for loop, what we are doing is we'll use a if statement or if condition. Numbers will basically compare if number at ith index is greater than the number that we have assumed that is the greatest, that is the largest. Here we'll basically compare every element with this particular number. So one by one it will give us whether it is greater or not. If it is not greater, then the number that we are comparing it with will be assigned this number, the largest number. Largest equals to numbers I. If that particular number is greater than largest, then we'll basically assign that number to the largest, because that will automatically become the largest. Then again we'll compare with the other elements, like that it will go. So basically we'll update the largest if current element is greater. All right, so let me write here also so that you guys understand what I'm doing. All right, so this will give you an idea. All right, so now coming to the printing part. So here the largest element is the variable largest, because the end result will be stored in the largest, because we are basically assigning if that particular value is greater than that to the largest variable itself. So whatever be the largest value will be stored inside it. Don't worry if you guys haven't understand it yet, I will explain it again, so you don't need to worry. All right, now for those guys who haven't understand it yet, first of all let me just save it and run it to make you guys sure that it is running or not. I think there is some error, as you can see. Oh yeah, here we haven't used the semicolon. Let's save it again and now let's try to run it. So as you can see, the largest element is 20 and this is our array. So yeah, the largest element is 20 itself, as we can see. So how this works, again I am explaining. So the array numbers contain a list of integers. We initially assume that the first element, that is this 5, we initially assume that the first element is the largest. So the first element, how did we assume? We assigned that the first element, that is numbers at 0th index, which is 5, to the largest variable. All right, so then we use a for loop to iterate through the rest of the array starting from index 1. All right, to compare it basically. During each iteration, we check if the current element that is 5, is greater than the current largest value. If it is, we update the value of the largest. Alright. And after the loop completes, the largest variable holds the value of the largest element in the array. So one by one, every element gets compared to 5. So first 5 gets compared to 12 and 12 is greater to 5. So yeah, now largest element becomes 12. Again, then 12 is compared, this is 12, 12 is compared with other element which is 7. But we know that 12 is greater than 7, then nothing will change. Then again 12 is compared with 20, then 20 is greater than 12, then the value 20 will be assigned to the largest variable, this variable. Again we'll compare it with 15, but 15 is not greater. Again we'll compare it with 9, but 9 is not greater. So eventually the largest element becomes 20. As simple as that. Alright. Now this was the example of finding the largest element. Let's do another example. Alright, so now we'll do an example in which we will find the sum and average of all the elements of an array. Alright, so first we will declare and initialize an array. Alright, so here we'll write the elements. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 are the elements of numbers array. Alright. Now we'll take a variable to store the sum of the elements. So we'll declare or we'll initialize a variable with 0. So this particular variable, sum variable, is storing the value 0. That is basically we are using this variable to store the sum. So initialized we have it with 0. We have initialized it with 0. Alright. Now we want to loop through the array to calculate the sum. So for that we have to use for loop because we want to loop it. So int I equals to 0, I less than numbers dot length now here sum equals sum plus numbers I. So here we will add each element to the sum. Alright, and we have did this example in the past in the previous tutorials also. So here we are basically adding each element to the sum. Alright, so as we know the initial value of sum is 0. We have initialized it with 0. So what this loop will do is, so basically this loop is iterating through this array. So first 0th index element comes, that is 10. So sum is, but as of now it is 0 and this is 10. So 0 plus 10 becomes 10. The value of sum becomes 10. Alright, then the second element will come and the second element value is 20 and sum is 10. So 10 plus 20 becomes 30. Then the third element will come which is 30 and sum is also 30. Then 30 plus 30 becomes 60. So this is how it will goes. Basically it will add one by one to the sum variable and each element will be added. Alright. Alright, now after this we will calculate the average, basically average as an integer because we will be displaying sum and average of all the elements. So for that int average equals sum divided by numbers dot length. As we know the formula to calculate the average, the sum of all the numbers divided by the length, that is the n. So numbers dot length will give us the size of the array, that is the number of elements that are there in the array. So basically we will divide it. Alright. Now system dot out dot println. Now here we'll display sum of elements, sum system dot out dot println. Here average of elements, average. Alright, so here what we are doing is we are basically printing sum and average. So we will be calculating the sum using this and then we'll calculate average using this. Once this is complete, average is calculated and simply we will displaying the both sum and average. Let's save it and run it. Sum of elements is 150 and the average of elements is 30. So as we know 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If we'll divide 150 by 5, the average will come. 150 divided by 5 will give us 30. So this is correct basically. Alright. So this is how, using loops and arrays, you can calculate the sum and average of an array. That's it. I hope you guys understand it. Now let's do an example in which we will be counting even and odd numbers in an array. Alright. So now let's do another example. Again, for this one also we'll be taking the similar array. Let's say numbers 10, 23, 44, 55, 78, 90. Alright. So these are the elements of the numbers array. Now we will we'll declare the variables to store count of even and odd numbers. We'll initialize those variables with 0. So basically we want something kind of variable to store count of even and odd integers. So that is why we are declaring it. Alright. So even count, let's initialize it with 0. Then odd count again with 0. Alright. Because we want to display the even and odd numbers, so that particular count will be stored in these numbers. Alright. Now we will loop through the array to count even and odd numbers. For that we'll use for loop and int I equals 0, I less than numbers dot length I plus plus. If numbers I2 is 0. So here what we are doing is, I hope you guys understand this part where we will be looping through the array. But now comes the if condition that we are using inside it. So basically here we are checking if a particular element gives us the remainder as 0. So as we already discussed, any number, if we will divide it by 2 and it will give us 0, then it is an even number. Alright. So here what we are doing is, as we know, mod will give us the remainder. Alright. So if we divide a particular number by 2 and it will give us 0 as the remainder, that means that particular number is even. And if it will not give us 0, then it is odd number. Alright. Simple as that. So this is what we are doing by calculating it. Okay. So we will check one by one each number. If that particular number gives us 0, that means it is even number. And if that is even number, we will increment this thing. Basically one count is increased, that particular element is even. And if it is not, like if it doesn't give us 0 number, then this number will increase, that is the odd count. As simple as that. So even count plus plus. Let me write here so you guys can understand. Increment even count as remainder is 0. Alright, here we'll use semicolon. Alright, so this was if, and then there is else. So if a number is, like if an element doesn't give us 0 on dividing it by 2 as a remainder, then that particular element is not even, which means it is odd. Alright, odd count plus plus. Increment odd count as remainder is not 0. Alright. So this is how it is done. Now if and else condition we have put, now the time is to print these. Alright. So here system dot out dot println. Here what we'll do is we'll print the even numbers. Numbers of even elements, even count. Then again we'll just copy paste it. Numbers of odd count. Alright, we'll save it. Let's see. So numbers of, alright, so by mistake we wrote like this. So yeah, numbers of even elements are 4 and number of odd elements are 2. Let's check. 2 is even, 44 is even, 78 is even, and 90 is even. Alright. So 4 are the even, and 7 and 55 and 23 are odd. So this output is correct. Alright. And I hope you guys understand. For those who didn't understand this thing, let me tell you, here we have initialized two variables, even count and odd count. We will be storing the number of counts in these particulars variables. Then we use loop to iterate through each and every element of an array and check if that particular element gives us 0 while dividing by 2. So mod 2 will give us remainder. So if we'll divide a particular element by 2 and if that particular element gives us 0, it means it is even number. And if it is even number, we'll increase the count by 1. And if it is not an even number, we will increase the count by 1 of the odd count. So this is how we are calculating the number of counts, and then we will simply displaying it. So yeah, these were some of the examples of arrays in Java. You can try these examples. I want you guys to try these examples and some more examples on your own, because then only you guys will be able to understand and implement these things. Now let me ask you something. Are you ready to take your tech skills to the next level and open doors to new career opportunities? Our Masters in Computer Science program is perfect for anyone aiming to thrive in the development world. In this program, you will explore everything from advanced Java to data structures, algorithm design and analysis, full stack development and whatnot. Don't wait, click the link in the description and start your journey today. Also, we believe that every individual has a unique path to success, and sometimes all it takes is a little guidance to unlock your potential. Our expert career advisors are ready to help you discover the path that's perfect for you. Don't miss out on this chance to invest in your future. Click the link in the description below to book your free counseling session now, and let's start building the career you have always dreamed of. Alright, we have covered a lot about arrays in Java, and you should now have a solid understanding of how they work. We have looked at what arrays are, how to declare and initialize them, and how to access or modify their elements. You also learned about different types of arrays like one-dimensional array and multi-dimensional array, and how Java handles them in memory. By now, you should be comfortable using arrays in your programs and leveraging them for storing and managing collections of data efficiently. In the coming videos, we will cover for each loop and many topics like that. So stay tuned and keep learning.